Today, what we're, and if you have problems or anything, just maybe put it in the chat or jump on, probably chat is the best way to do it. So what we're going to do today is deal just with cash, absolute cash legacies. That's what we're going to learn to do and get to be experts in that. So obviously you can do that, a cash legacy, in any one of the three scenarios. So pick a scenario that you want to do it in. And we know that it's going to be in initial gifts. That's where we're going to make a cash legacy. So to get to that point, if you see on your screen, you'll be in a scenario and you can pick any scenario you like. You'll see initial gifts, click on the initial gifts, and you'll have a box, a green empty box here if you're starting from scratch. So very simply, you know you want to make a cash gift, so you hit the plus, the add cash gift sign. And so we'll do that. Now, what that will do is automatically bring up a list of all of the people in your not in your family tree and any other people that you've added, other non-related people. It will bring up a category for classes, so any potential classes and the members who are in that class, and it'll bring up a charities tab. Okay, so let's assume for a second that we're going to do something quite simple, and we're going to make a legacy to one person. Well, very straightforward. You just pick the person that you want to leave it to and just click on their name on the checkbox. Now you can add more than one person, but let's say we're leaving a legacy to one person. If it's somebody who doesn't yet exist, you can just add them by clicking on new person, putting in their name, their gender, and all of the information that you want to put in to identify them. And now they're added and they'll be one of the legatees. Okay. So we've picked one person and we're going to go done. Now we're going to actually create the legacy. And today we're just concentrating on absolute legacies, so cash gifts with basically no strings. And so a couple things that you'll see on the screen. Let's go to the easy stuff first, is the amount of that legacy. So you can pick $1,000, you put in whatever amount you want. You can index that legacy. So $1,000 at the date the will is signed, but it's going to go up with inflation automatically, so that if you die in 30 years, that $1,000 is going to be $1,800.34 or something. It's going to index automatically to the consumer price index. So that's what we would do if we wanted that to happen. If we didn't, we'd just uncheck it. I want to just talk about priority of payments for a second. You'll see when we add a bunch of legacies, we may be afraid of abatement. We may be afraid that there's not enough money to satisfy all the legacies if we're adding a whole bunch of them. And so what we want to do is prioritize. First, this legacy gets paid, then these two legacies get paid, then this third legacy gets paid if there's not enough money. And that's set in the priority of payment. So by default, every legacy is the same priority. It's priority 1. But if you wanted to make another gift, you wanted first this gift to be made, and then you added another gift, and you wanted that to only be paid if this one was paid in full, then you could add that as priority 2. And that's how that works. So just a simple gift, we've got Lisa for $1,000. And if we don't have an alternate beneficiary, if we just want that to lapse, then we don't need a gift over at all. It's going to automatically lapse, like our law says about gifts, so you don't have to put in a gift over. The only time you would put a gift over in is if you said, okay, I want it to go to Lisa, but if Lisa's not alive, I want that legacy amount divided between her children or her issue or my children and my issue or some specific person. And that's done. And we'll talk more about gift overs on another day, but that's, you could add any kind of beneficiary in using a specific distribution as an alternate beneficiary. Okay. So we finished this gift. That's it. Cash gift to Lisa, $1,000. Very straightforward. Okay. Similarly, we might, if you added 2 people, let's say we want to add a legacy to these 3 people. Okay. We can do that. We just click on the checkbox. We can uncheck it and they'll be removed. We can add them back in. We can delete them here. We can do whatever we want. And those are our 3 legatees. And when, again, it's an absolute gift, let's assume we don't have a worry about they're going to abate all ratably. So no legacy has a priority over another. We put in an amount, let's just say $2,000. Now, as soon as you have more than one person, so if it's multiple people or it's a class of people, there's going to be two options for you. You can either divide that legacy amount equally among those three people, or you can direct that it be paid to each. And that, of course, is a question you would ask your client. If they said, oh, I want to give $2,000 to each of these three people, that's fine. You just click there, and that's how it would be drafted. So that's how that would work. So those are two examples of cash legacies. We can do, I'll just pause there and see if there are any questions on how to do that, or if anybody's having difficulty doing it, and I'll continue with some other things in a moment. If you've got a question, you can just unmute if you want and just shout it out as well. All right. Feel free and interrupt me if necessary. So the next thing I want to talk about is scenarios and cash gifts. So eState, remember, is scenario based. So in this case, if the legacies are only in the descendants only, that's the only time that they will be paid. Okay. They will only be paid if you have descendants alive. Now, that might not be what the client's instructions are. They might say, look, I want these legacies paid if I leave kids or if I don't leave kids. In other words, the no descendants scenario. Okay, well, that's easy. I don't have to recreate these legacies again. I can just copy them. So if I want the Lisa cash gift to be paid regardless of whether I have descendants or no descendants, I have to copy it to both scenarios. And so I just go like this. I copy to. So let me just show you how I do that again. I'm on the tab for the legacy. I click the three dots on the right, and I go to copy to. And I just pick, okay, I want this payment made if I leave issue or if I have no descendants. Well, now it'll automatically be in the no descendants scenario. Okay? Because eState assumes if you put it in only one scenario, that's the only condition that's the only time you want that legacy paid. So for example, question for you, here's if you get this point or not. If I want a legacy paid regardless of who's alive, spouse, kids, or no descendants, where am I going to put that legacy? The answer is I'm going to put it in all three scenarios, and then it will be paid regardless. Okay, it'll be paid if my spouse is alive, it'll be paid if I have descendants, and it'll be paid if I have no descendants. Okay, so that's the important copy to button. By the way, that applies for many different kinds of gifts. You have to copy them to make sure that we're only leaving them under the conditions that you want. Okay, so that's the idea of cash legacies. Let's just talk about charities for a second. So if I wanted to leave a cash gift charity, then there's the people, the classes, and then there's the charities tab. So I click charities, and then I would type in the name of the charity. However I want to type it in, and I will pick the appropriate charity that I want to leave the legacy to. Now, maybe the client isn't sure of which of these two we want to leave it to. If I click on the information button here, just to the right, it's going to tell me everything about that charity that's in the CRA website. So I can see, oh, is this the right one? Yes, it's the one on Ainsley. So that's fine. And so that's how I can make sure that I'm picking the right charity. And I want to leave it, again, I want to leave $1,000 to that charity. I could, you know what, the client says, oh, no, I want to leave $1,000 to not only them, but I want to leave it to another charity as well. I don't know, Arts Tobacco, let's say. You can do that. You can have multiple charities that's given to, but now, as you would expect, I have to decide whether I'm dividing it equally between those charities or $1,000 to each. Okay. Now, logically, it it doesn't matter if you do them individually. Like I could do, for each of Daniel, Bart, and Abraham, I could do a separate gift and list it that way. Then it'll appear in a separate paragraph. If I want them all to be, to give $2,000 to each of Daniel, Bart, and Abraham, then I'm going to put it in one cash gift. Just a preference, however you like to do it. But that's the functionality on that front.
Jordy, quick question.
Yeah.
I clicked on to charities and I don't get a list at all.
You have to start typing. You have to type in at least 3 names, 3 letters.
Okay.
See if that works.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Otherwise, there's like 30,000 charities, so we don't start with anything.
I understand. Thanks.
Hi, Jordy. Oh, sorry.
Whoever, go ahead.
Okay, can I ask a quick question? It's back to the cash legacies. Say you've got a husband and wife situation and they want to leave, I don't know, $1,000, but they don't want to. So if wife dies, she leaves $1,000, and then husband dies, he doesn't want to leave $1,000 because it's already been dealt with in the wife's estate. Is there like a clause that you can incorporate?
So there will be a clause. So it will automatically see if it's on the death of the first spouse, it's not a problem because they would never be paid under both wills. Because for example, if it's a surviving spouse scenario, if both Marge and Homer had the same gift of $1,000 to Lisa in the surviving spouse scenario, there can only be one time where there's a surviving spouse scenario because they have to survive for 30 days. So you would never have it paid under both. Because the only time Lisa gets this is if the spouse is alive on the 30th day. Okay. Right. Once you have it in a second scenario, like let's say we had it in both of these scenarios, the same legacies in both scenarios, then eState would see that and would automatically draft a clause that says, if we die within 30 days of one another, don't pay it twice.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
It sees that, but it knows that you don't need that clause if it's the surviving spouse, because you can never have both spouses surviving each other by 30 days.
Right. Okay.
Or nobody would be dead.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hello, Jordy.
Yeah.
Quick question. When I was using the charity function in the past, I'm not sure if this was a feature or a bug. It was populating a great deal of information from the menu, including like directors, office address, etc. I just wasn't accustomed to doing it that way, so I was taking that information out and just sticking with the name and registered charitable number. It
puts the address in just so people can identify it.
Oh, okay.
But shouldn't put directors, right? We don't even have that information. So here's what I would tell you about it. Okay. We are just taking this data straight from CRA. Okay?
Right.
And so we don't edit this. We don't verify it. We don't do anything. So some people, like these charities are put in by you, like by the charity, they put in their name. Some of them put in their name, like it asks for their address. So they put Toronto all in caps.
Yeah.
Well, we just put in whatever's on the CRA website. But
understood.
It would never have directors or anything like that. We don't even have that information. So
okay. Sure. In one case, my guess is then the charity or CRA's website just had a director name in the address, and Correct. It just pulled it and auto-populated it. Yeah. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah. No problem. No problem. Any other questions on those? Or I'll go with a few other. I think that's really all that I wanted to cover on cash gifts. They're obviously the most simple kind of gift. Let me then just show you a couple other points about cash gifts. For any gift, we have this conditions tab. You see that here. And in most cases, there's no condition. Because, I mean, you don't have to worry about survivorship. That is by definition a condition. But one example of a condition, and we'll talk a little bit about this, probably it's more likely to be seen in the residue section, but deduct prior advances is a hodgepodge provision. So if you're leaving a legacy, a cash legacy of a specific amount, but you still want to hodgepodge it, you say, I want to give $5,000 to this person, but if I've given them $3,000 during my lifetime, I want that deducted from their $5,000. That's what deduct prior advances does. And you can put in the amount and etc. So that's what that condition does. And you'll see that same condition for any kind of absolute gift. And then we have another, if there's some kind of condition, if he is drug-free, or something like that, you could type that in and it'll populate in the will. Now you might have to edit it a bit, but to make sure it drafts it the way you want it, but it will put it in the will and it'll highlight it so that you know that there's a condition that's a custom condition. And that is basically, maybe I'll just generate this will and show you what it might look like. While I'm doing that, any other questions about cash legacies that people have?
Hi, Jordy, it's Greg again. I had a quick question about cash legacies and I guess implicitly also scenarios and sort of the interacting with the beneficiaries under a certain age provisions that populate in, where there might be different scenarios where people have put, say, obviously you wouldn't do this with a cash legacy, but in scenarios, future children, and then mixing that with perhaps a cash legacy named to a niece or nephew who's currently only, 6 or something, and then on into ultimate distributions and so on. And there may be different things they want happening with beneficiaries of a different age, depending on what issue or not.
Yep.
Just in terms of that handling, is that just sort of get in, review, and do the work? Or
Well, then what you're doing in essence is you need trust gifts for each of those people, right? If you want the idea of beneficiaries under a certain age is really your fallback default situation for anybody under a particular age that you don't set up a trust for. Okay, that's what this section's about. Now, if I were creating a trust for nieces and nephews, okay, let me just pull that up. So let's say you're doing, this is not an unusual situation. You're going nieces and nephews, and you want to leave, 50 grand to each niece or nephew. Now you would do a trust for this, unless you wanted the beneficiaries under a certain age to apply to that. If you wanted some special age group, then you've got to do a special trust for them, right? You would have to do that and set, this age. No, for nieces and nephews, I want it 25. That kind of thing. While we're on that topic, I did want to show you something that's an option that we have now that we never had before, and it's a feature we just released. If you're leaving a legacy to a bunch of nieces and nephews, and they're all underage, and you have they're different siblings, for example, that have the kids, and you want the parent of that child, of that niece and nephew, to be the trustee for them, you now have that option. You can pick them as a special trustee. You can pick the beneficiary's parent as the trustee for each of the different nieces and nephews. So one would have their parent as the trustee, someone else would have their parent as the trustee, etc. So that's what we built in as a new gift trustee option, but that's more on the trust side. But I did want to, while you were raising that, I did want to point that out. But that's how the beneficiaries under a certain age, basically it's your default. So if you want somebody that's not going to get it at that age, then you need to you need to create a special trust for them, just like you would normally.
Thank you.
So that's that, and I'll just show you the way those initial gifts, right? We collect them all at one point. And again, it's going to run through the scenarios. So when it sees, that there's a certain gift in only, that's not different from, if there was one gift that was the same to the same person in all 3 scenarios, it would only be in one spot, and it would say, I direct my trustees to pay it, because it doesn't matter who's alive. In this case, eState saw, hold on, it's the same person for the same amount, but in this scenario, there was a condition for this person, so we can't lump those together. So it's smart that way. But that's how the legacies get drafted. Any other questions that we can answer about cash legacies?
Just a quick question, Jody. So that $1,000 gift, that would be in the scenario, surviving spouse.
Yes.
Would you also put that under descendants only? Like, would you copy it to
Yes.
descendants only?
Yeah, you would, but it's only it sees that there's one gift in surviving spouse scenario. There happens to be the same gift in the no descendants, but because it's not in all three, then it can't lump it together. So it's going to appear if my spouse is alive, pay Lisa. And then in the ultimate distribution where everyone was gone, it will also say that. Okay, because it can't match it in all three scenarios. So there's different, that's why it's going to appear in separately.
So you put it in spouse, my surviving spouse, and
Yes.
you put it in descendants only.
I put it in, no, I put it in, descendants only had a condition. That's why it saw that it was different. So in my descendants only, I put in a condition. So it sees that's different than A. That's different than this paragraph.
Okay.
Right? Because there's now, and maybe I didn't want to do that. Maybe I wanted to copy the same one to both. That was fine. But what I did in this is I actually put in a condition for one of them, and eState saw, okay, that's different. That's not the same. I can't pay that gift out in all three scenarios because this is actually different than this one. This has a condition on it. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay. If I went back into this just to show you the impact of that, if I had gone back into it, I think it was in this scenario that I had a condition. Yeah, I did. So if I had done none now the same gift is in all three scenarios and it's going to combine them. That's the point. But it was smart. It saw that, oh, this one's not the same. There's a condition on this one and there's no condition on the other one. So that's the idea there.
Great, thanks.
Just out of curiosity for our own information, how many of you guys did it live with me and how many just were we're just for our information. Is that something that's useful to do it on your own while I'm doing it, or is that something that it's just easier to watch? Anybody?
I think it's easier to watch.
Okay. All right.
Bit of both.
Okay, good. Well, now you can try it when you get off the webinar and do it. So just to clarify that one, remember that question about, well, what happens if it's in all three exactly the same? Well, this is what we did. And you can see, it just says, I direct my trustees to pay the sum to my daughter, because it saw that it was in all exact same beneficiary, same amount, no conditions for all of them. Then we're going to lump it all together. Okay. So, great. Well, that's really awesome. While I have a couple of minutes, I just want to show you, you guys are getting knowledge of something that no one else knows yet. But this is a new feature we released on Friday. It's our first fully customizable options. And if you now go into your documents and you're setting up your wills, you can go into administrative provisions and choose which ones you want to include in your default will and which ones you don't want to include. So do I want to include an in-specie distribution? Here's the wording for that. We also have a simplified version. And you can also paste in your own. So if you've got, to make any in-specie distributions, if that's your one, or type it in or paste it in or whatever, now your will have your custom administrative provision in it. So if you want to customize any of the administration provisions, you can do that. You can exclude, I do like the single will, but I don't need to include the agent in there. So I can exclude that. It won't appear by default. You can change these options for any particular client. So if you're into the client and you're ready to generate their will, you can go to the administrative provisions and edit it and customize it for that particular client. This that I'm showing you customizes it as your default. But again, you can go back and change it. So that's the way we're going for the next thing we're doing are powers of attorney. You're going to be able to customize every paragraph, choose ours, choose a simplified version, put in your own. And so that's where we're going with the idea of customization. You can exclude certain paragraphs that you don't want, or you always want a paragraph to appear or whatever. You can do that. So administrative provisions is where we started. We're moving towards that to be more and more customizable. So if you go into your portal right now and go to documents, that's how you can customize your administrative provisions. So thanks, everybody. Please feel free, if you have questions, post this or anytime. I think what we'll do next week is we'll try some residue gifts and how that is slightly different, and how to create maybe some simple residue gifts first, and then more complicated. So thanks, everybody. And we really appreciate all your support. It's wonderful. Thank you.